all of your creations, all of your attempts to make things come from compulsive urges and narcissistic intentions to be seen and get your needs met. And actually, if you just like resolve those, you wouldn't need any you wouldn't need to make art. And it's not other people's responsibility to validate you. Like, you're just really a needy, like, stupid person who is dysfunctional and dysregulated, and you have the narcissist's contempt for genuine connections, such that the only thing that you can really do is busy yourself with making like music or attaching yourself to really solitary routines and cycles of making things to then share them with the hope that it might create some sense of satisfaction or connection, but really you're just a solitary weirdo who has to use those things as coping mechanisms because you don't actually know how to function as a normal human being, and you do the ordinary things that a lot of people find satisfying. And on top of that, you then try and encourage and teach others to do the same, like, and guide others. And who are you to, who the hell are you? Who are you to advise anybody? Because you're not any kind of model of human, of what to do with your career or your work. Like, you're just kind of a total fraud, really, and you're like figuring it out as you go along in the most sort of clumsy, haphazard, like lazy way, and all of your work is just, you know, it's like an impulsive sort of splurge. And like, even where there are glimmers of something that's good or genuine or interesting, it's just like executed in such a sort of cruddy way that it's like never going to land on the other side anyway. So how can you those who can't do teach? You are the definition of that. You are just this sort of weird person who can't quite make things that are gonna appeal to a large audience. You can't make things that are gonna garner you any sort of personal or financial success or sustenance, because people just aren't interested in them because they're strange, and only strange people are interested in them. And yeah, maybe you do something to like encourage and empower and sort of warm the hearts of the other fellow weirdos of the world who aren't who are also like dysfunctional and weird and have weird coping mechanisms like art making. But ultimately, like, what is the point? Like, what is the point in you? What is the point in you? You're just this like, you're just a strange person, and fundamentally, like, there's no use. Like, there's no use for you. The world doesn't need your expression. The world doesn't need your art. The world doesn't need more music. Like, the world doesn't need your content on social media in addition to all of the other stuff that's going on. And it certainly doesn't need you encouraging other people to be doing the same. And you can only do that stuff anyway because of how privileged you are, because of how much you have benefited from sort of maybe like foolish family who actually just humour your sort of weirdness because you're weird and intense, and they love you because they gave birth to you and you are them, so they love you and they want you to be alive and doing your thing and thriving because you're an extension of them, and they don't want to not have, like, they don't want to lose a child, like, they don't want to have someone who's not functioning or dead, because that would be grief and pain. But they're also like, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, when you were a kid it was good, it was cute when you would sing or play and you're very clever and all of that stuff. But you know, now you're an adult, just sort of, yeah, if it's not happening, if you're singing and dancing and expressing yourself and painting, but it's not making any money, like, you just need to stop messing about really and grow up, because the only reason you're able to sort of peddle this stuff and do that and live this life of play is because you are in a privileged situation where you're not having to live the with the usual pressures of other people, due to your family being supportive enough for you to live with them and not have quite the overheads that you would ordinarily have. And the only reason you do all that stuff anyway, and the only reason you make art and all that, is to kind of people please them anyway, because really, like, they never had the opportunity to be an artist or musician, and they liked that people did do that, and they like musicians and they look up to them, but they didn't have that inclination themselves. So then they sort of, you are like their unlived experiment, fantasy / fear of what happens when someone just isn't able to really function in the real world and thinks they can make something of their craft. Like, how ridiculous is that? And you're also, like, a lot of the creative stuff you do, it's just compulsive and it's not really thought out, and people can tell there's a sort of needy energy of like needing to be seen, needing to perform. This is the exhibitionism, the narcissism. Again, it's probably all because when you were a kid, your parents and your dad in particularly, like, documented you a lot and took photographs of you a lot, and you were sort of praised, and like, when you were praised for being clever and being special, then you have to like kind of try and do more things and become more and more special. So you do, you know, the drawings and whatever, and these are all like natural, effortless, like childlike, lovely inclinations. But yeah, ultimately, like, unless you get really savvy and learn how to market yourself and have confidence and belief in what you're doing enough to sell it to other people, then just like, it's not like, it's a pipe dream. It's a flipping pipe dream. You're on cloud 9, cloud cuckoo land. You don't live in the real world. It's just airy fairy nonsense bullshit, dream selling. Like, people like us, people like you, don't get to make a living from their work. And if you want to do that, like, you'll have to sell your soul to the devil. You have to sell out and work in advertising or something, because ultimately the world isn't going to reward you for being good. What you are doing has no value. It has value when you're like, there's a sort of cult of the personality around you and you die or something, and then people care. But other than that, like, it just doesn't matter. So what you have to say is not important, and it's been said before. Ultimately as well, you're probably just like, as a woman, really neurotic, and what you really need is to be like a mother. So you need to have a child, and then you'll lose all of your neurosis, because you will be serving. You'll not be playing this stupid game of like trying to stand out and be shiny and make things and be seen in your creative expression, because ultimately, like, that's just a pursuit, and wanting to be shiny is wanting to like attract a man and have a baby and have a family, and you're just too messed up to do that, really, and you're too sort of dysfunctional to have like a normal relationship and find a normal husband or partner and have a child, because you're too in your head and you're too sort of addicted to the idea that your work, like your music, is your baby, and you're going to think that that is as satisfying as a life as having an actual family or having connections and maintaining those, and not just sort of, yeah, having your creative thing as your main thing. Like, it's is sad. It's really sad, and I feel sorry for you. Kind of, I would feel sorry for you if you weren't just so foolish and stupid. Like, how could you actually think that? How could you actually think that you could do this? Stupid. Okay, so that's 10 minutes. This is something that I would encourage everyone who has any inner critic activity to do. Like I didn't even time that for 10 minutes, but that was basically 10 minutes of inner critic rampage. So all of the sort of worst thoughts I have about myself and what I do. I mean, there's loads more, and I'll probably do a part 2 at some point, but those are some of the sort of fundamental core ones. Just speak them out loud or write them down, and then it's like, okay, then what? So say that's all true. My creativity is worthless, and I only do it because I feel so unworthy as a human and I'm so dysfunctional as a human, so I use these coping mechanisms to try and get some validation or connection and feel like my existence is meaningful, and I can't even do that properly, so that's why I try and teach and guide others, and heart school is just a joke. Like, even if that's all true, like, I still have the impulse to do it, so I should just, it's like, it couldn't be any other way. Like, you can't be any other way than you are. You've got to just be what you are, and that inner critic voice can be useful sometimes. It's good to meet it, it's good to hear it out and invite it to the table, because it might have some good pointers. It might also be just chatting lots of shit in order to help you and in order to, yeah, just make sure that you're on the right track and you're vigilant. But ultimately, solidarity and love to all the people who are sort of squashed and crushed by that voice sometimes. It's really hard. I'd recommend The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron as a way to work through some of that inner critic, some of those stories, and I'm probably going to write a book as well called Clearing the Channel that will help with that too. But yeah, invite it to the party, invite it into the studio with you, because it's there, probably. If it's not, then power to you. And I'd love your tips on what you do with your inner critic. Please drop them in the comments below. There have been many things over the years that I've used, but yeah, absolutely always in need of inner critic space holding encounter energy. So yeah, thank you for watching, and don't let the inner critic crush you. Use it, keep it, don't try and ignore it all the time, because it needs to be heard. Like, it needs to be heard. It wants to be heard. It has valid concerns. It's trying to protect you. It needs to be heard. So let it speak, and then you can be like, okay, great, okay. So even if that's the case, like, I'm still alive and I've still got these impulses, so I'm just gonna like carry on with them. Thank you.